You are listening to the Monday Night War Review, where Frankincense, Big Business, and Big Tex chronologically review the Monday Night Wars from 1995 to 2001 between WCW Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw. Join us for this roller coaster ride of nostalgia and hilarity.
It's my life in the box in front of me. Taking talk in my arms is the soul of me. You walk by, ask to see me laying face down.
Welcome to the Monday Night War Review. I am Frankincense, and I'm here with my friends Big Business and Big Tex. We are reviewing the October 16th, 1995 episodes of Monday Night Raw and WCW Monday Nitro. We're going to start with the episode of Raw. This is the 131st episode of Raw that was ever produced. It is from the tapings that had taken place in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that started all the way back on September 25th. Apparently, this is the last time that we're going to get a taped show from Grand Rapids. Our main events for the shows tonight, we have Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem in a steel cage match, and that is going to be going up against a Ric Flair and Sting tag match versus Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman on Nitro. But more on that later. So on Raw, we have Jerry the King Lawler and Vince McMahon doing commentary. The show had a 2.6 in the TV ratings, which actually beat Nitro this week. McMahon and Lawler are talking about the Bret Hart Isaac Yankem match. There's a special stipulation where if Jerry Lawler interferes, he's going to be put into his own cage and suspended above the ring. So obviously it seems like that's likely to happen. I don't think they would tease that stipulation and then not have it take place. Jerry Lawler has some obvious foreshadowing because he says Isaac Yankem's victory is under lock and key.
And that was part of the whole little promo at the start where it was like dental related, like intimidating jokes. Where I think Isaac Yankem said, like, I'm going to put you in the biggest pair of braces the WWE has ever seen. I was like, what does that mean? But yeah, I enjoyed that.
This is the last Raw before In Your House 4. So In Your House 4 will be in Winnipeg on this following Sunday. So this is the go-home show. And I don't know if it was the greatest go-home show in terms of like building up to a pay-per-view, but we'll talk about the In Your House card as we go through Raw's events. McMahon says that Dean Douglas and Mabel were each fined $7,500 for their actions last week after the six-man tag match, where a bunch of heels came out and beat down on the baby faces. We are also told that The Undertaker has been injured due to Mabel's attack. So we're not going to get Undertaker on the In Your House 4 card, and Gorilla Monsoon will be here tonight on Raw to announce Mabel's new opponent for In Your House.
Now, what had happened to The Undertaker? Was it the facial injury?
Yes. Mabel actually Mabel broke his orbital bone with that leg drop.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I was watching one of those Stone Cold podcast interviews, and he had Undertaker on there, and I think Mabel actually hit him with like it was supposed to hit him with a clothesline, but he hit him with his fist right into his orbital bone.
Oh, so it wasn't when he was doing all the leg drops and everything.
I think that was part of the story, but Taker said that he hit him with like a fist.
Oh, okay. I guess that probably makes a little more sense than it happening on a leg drop, but I guess anyway.
He said they had to rebuild his orbital bone or something like that.
Jesus. We'll get to find out who Mabel's new opponent is later, but I think, when it was originally going to be The Undertaker, it's obviously a disappointment that we won't get Taker in Your House. But it'll make his return at Survivor Series all the more memorable. So the first match that we get on Raw is Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Doink the Clown. What did you guys think of this little opening number?
I do enjoy like the original Hunter Hearst Helmsley. There's just something very dislikable about that character, and I enjoyed watching it, again.
Yeah, I enjoy Triple H's original gimmick as well, the blue blood gimmick. I always thought he was very heelish, like quintessential heelish. And one thing I want to point out, like a lot of the time when Vince was calling one of these original Triple H matches, he would use the word proboscis in describing Triple H, I guess in reference to his nose. But he's done that several times. Thought it was funny.
Helmsley was also spraying his like perfume around. I guess it was perfume. It kind of reminded me of Rick the Model Martel, and he was like spraying this perfume around. And McMahon said it smelled like Raid, which I thought was it was a great like corny '90s Vince line. We find out that Helmsley is going to be facing Fatu at In Your House 4. Jerry the King Lawler takes this opportunity to say that Fatu is the kind of person who belongs in a cage, not him. I was like, damn, okay. Yeah. Apparently, this is one of Doink's last televised matches. I don't think we're really going to get much of Doink in the future. I think his whole run was kind of coming to an end. You know, it's a pretty short match, but Helmsley does win eventually with the pedigree after he reverses a flying body press off the second rope. At one point, Jerry the King Lawler, instead of Hurricane Opal, he says Hurricane Oprah, which I thought was a pretty funny Jerry Lawler line. They also tease a little reference to the vicious attack on Shawn Michaels that took place on Friday, October 13th, leading up to this episode of Raw. And we're going to get more and more about the Shawn Michaels attack and injury as we go through the show. You know, we had talked in previous weeks about seeing if we would get some Barry Horowitz and Hakushi segments, and we did. I was amazed that we got a Barry Horowitz Hakushi segment. So, okay, so one of you take us through what this Horowitz Hakushi segment was all about.
So you had Barry Horowitz trying to get Hakushi kind of acclimated to American vernacular in a way, and he's asking him questions about baseball and like who's the home run king in baseball, and he tries to get him to say Babe Ruth. And Hakushi manages to squeak out Aaron or Hank Aaron or something like that. And then it was pretty funny. Horowitz goes, "Oh, yeah, you're right. It is Hank Aaron."
Now, I loved Hakushi when I was a kid. How long has he been in the WWF at this point?
I think the first ever In Your House, Bret had to face both Hakushi and the King.
Oh,
yeah.
In one night, and I think it was in 1993 or something.
I want to say 95-ish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was still 95.
Oh, okay. So if that's the case, then Hakushi's only been around for like this year.
Yeah, not long at all.
Okay. I was thinking that he had been around a little bit longer, but yeah. So I mean, anyway, McMahon called it the Americanization of Hakushi, and then the whole idea was that Horowitz was educating Hakushi about baseball, but then it turned out that Hakushi actually knew more about American baseball than Barry Horowitz. So it was pretty poorly acted, but I thought the content was a funny idea, and I hope there are more Americanization of Hakushi segments because they are awesomely bad, and yeah. I love it. And I hope we get to see them in tag action at some point. So we get PG-13 cutting a promo on the Smoking Guns. They say that they are going to lasso the Smoking Guns and win the WWF tag titles. One of them says the rodeo is over, man. And then I think Wolfie D, He follows that up and he says, "We're taking you fools to school because we're cool like the water in the swimming pool." And I was like, oh. Like, I don't think people even in 1995 could have possibly thought that was a cool line to say. like what? Doesn't like Jimmy on South Park say something like that at some point? Like, cool like a fool in a pool. Like, yes. I'm pretty sure he does. Like, man, PG-13 is so corny, man. But we are gonna get PG-13 and the Smoking Guns pretty soon. Interim President Gorilla Monsoon makes his announcement, and he says that Mabel will be facing Yokozuna at In Your House 4. Since Yokozuna helped hurt The Undertaker, it seems fitting that Yokozuna will be The Undertaker's replacement. And I was like, I don't really see that logic. And I just feel like Monsoon is terrible at giving fan service, and like no one wants to see Yokozuna and Mabel. Like, that's gonna be rough. And honestly, we can talk about the whole In Your House 4 card later, but It does not sound too crisp. Yeah, what do you guys think about Yoko and Mabel?
That's two big guys. I don't know how long that match can last.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing. It's going to have to be a short match. And I know Gorilla Monsoon tried to hype it up, saying, you know, you have a 500-plus pounder against a 600-plus pounder, but those matches rarely tend to turn out very good.
Yeah, and heel versus heel is just a bad formula for a match most of the time. Like, it's kind of like, you know, there's so little emotional investment. You know, like, who are you really supposed to root for? Yeah, they're really just riding this whole spectacle of like, oh, there's going to be 1,000+ pounds in the ring. It's like, all right, cool, you know. So then we do get the Smoking Guns versus PG-13. McMahon is kind of putting over PG-13 on commentary, although he doesn't seem to really know too much about where they come from or what their gimmick's supposed to be, but he does, you know, give them a lot of props for being surprisingly athletic and everything like that. McMahon says that the Smoking Guns are going to be on America Online later, quote, chatting with all of you hackers. McMahon also plugs that Razor Ramon and 123 Kid are going to be facing the Guns for the belts at In Your House 4. Well, I guess hypothetically they're going to be facing whoever the champions are at In Your House 4. Yeah, I mean, one time McMahon asks Lawler why they called PG-13, and Lawler says because their moms still have to take them to the movies.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That was a good line, yeah. There's this one, like, pretty cartoonish spot where, like, Bart Gunn keeps running around the ring to chase after one member of PG-13, but he keeps getting distracted while the other member just beats up Billy. Like, I thought that was pretty funny. It made Bart
I enjoyed that too.
It made Bart look like a really stupid babyface, like, that he couldn't, you know, figure out this tactic. What did you guys think overall of this tag match? I was kind of looking forward to seeing these teams face off, but what do you guys think?
No big thoughts on the match. I was kind of glad it ended. I enjoyed the commentary more than anything. So
I started to enjoy the match once PG-13, like, stopped clowning so much more than wrestling. I mean, it seemed like at the beginning of the match they were doing more clowning than wrestling, and then once they started getting down to, you know, getting their tag team style in, that the frequent tags, the frequent double team moves, I think psychology wise, I think that fits. I think that's actually kind of a believable way for them to get their style over. It's like if they're constantly tagging and doing their stuff, they can actually come off as a kind of credible tag team, but you expected the Smoking Guns to pull it out at the end.
Yeah, of course. I don't think anybody was really thinking PG-13 was going to win, but that if they won, then they would have clearly been transitional champions. Like, if they won, then it would have been probably pretty clear that Razor and Kid were going to beat them at In Your House. Yeah, I agree with you, Tex, that I think since they're so small, like PG-13 so undersized, that I think they do get over most when they're like doing their like tag moves where they're constantly beating you down 2-on-1 and everything. So, and I actually kind of like them as workers, but it was pretty funny, like, when the Smoking Guns make their comeback and, like, Bart gets the hot tag and cleans house, like, they hit the Sidewinder on Wolfie D, and then JC Ice can't even get into the ring. He, like, trips. He's like he's like trying to break up the count, and he, like, trips, and Bart Gunn literally just, like, shrugs his shoulders, like, guess I don't have to stop you. You just tripped. Like, and I thought that was kind of a nice clownish way to end. It probably wasn't intentional, but I think it kind of, like, added to it. Yeah, I mean, PG-13 basically came across as, like, glorified jobbers in a way, and I kind of would have liked if they, like, signed them on, because, like, there's such a dearth of tag teams in the WWF right now, but I don't think we're going to see them again until the Nation of Domination days. Oh man, I loved the Bertha Faye promo. We got a Bertha Faye promo that came after this, and I was actually pretty stoked on this, because I remembered Bertha Faye from when I was a kid, but I didn't have any kind of semblance of where she actually appeared in the timeline. So, you know, we get this clip of this big lady. I mean, she's fat. She's fat, you know. I mean, but she's intimidatingly fat. Like, she looks like she could beat up most women wrestlers. So it's kind of a quick little promo to hype up Bertha Faye versus Alondra Blaze. It's just kind of clips of Bertha Faye and Harvey Whippleman doing stuff in the ring. The King says no one knew who she was, but she definitely left an impression. We see her beating Alondra Blaze for the WWF Women's Championship. For some reason, the King calls her a bathing beauty. I don't know exactly why. And we find out that we're getting their women's title rematch next week on Raw. So we're going to get to see our first WWF women's match. since we've started doing the show. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Bertha Faye and Harvey Whippleman and Alundra Blaze?
I like the little Harvey guy because he's like a third of the size of Bertha. But are these the only two women wrestlers they have right now?
I mean, basically. It seems like what happens is you have Alundra Blaze, and then Vince brings in, like, Japanese...
Opponent.
Yeah, and he brings in, like, basically Japanese ones, because even though I don't think Bertha Faye... I think she actually might be half Japanese. And anyway, Bertha Faye wrestled in Japan, and then I think at some point, Vince brings in Bull Nakano, who's like a serious female Japanese wrestler with like big spiked hair, and like she fights Alundra Blaze at one point. I'm not sure if that was before this or after this, but yeah, it's basically like you have the women's champion and then Vince just finds like monster opponents for her. But yeah, there's not like a legitimate female talent roster right now. That's for sure.
There's going to be a lot of rematches between these two.
Basically, yeah. Eventually, Alundra Blaze will leave and become Medusa in WCW, and that'll have a whole big controversy that we'll get to eventually, so that'll be cool when that happens. Anyway, we're going to get Bertha and Alundra next week on Raw. I'm kind of excited for that, actually. Doc Hendricks interviews the British Bulldog and Jim Cornette in a taped segment from WWF's Tour de Force. Cornette says that the Bulldog will use whatever means necessary to win the WWF title at In Your House. Bulldog says he's tired of being disrespected and will take what is rightfully his this Sunday at the pay-per-view. Doc makes a little jibe at them and says that he only won because Yokozuna leg dropped Diesel and let Bulldog get the pin. But Cornette says this has been a plot all along, that Bulldog suckered Diesel into being his partner so that he could swerve on him and attack him and turn his back on all his friends. So Bulldog has gone to such great lengths that nothing will stop him now. It's kind of sad that I think I'm most excited to see the Smoking Guns and Razor Ramon and 1-2-3 Kid. Like, I'm not that excited to see Diesel and British Bulldog. But what did you guys think of Cornette and Bulldog and the WWF Tour de Force?
Yeah, I was left with the same impression. I feel like upcoming for that In Your House, the only thing I'm really looking forward to is Goldust, weirdly.
Hell yeah. Goldust and Marty Jannetty. Yeah.
And, I can't imagine they're going to have Marty Jannetty, prevail in that. So that'll be fun too.
Not much on this promo. Even Jim Cornette can't really hype up Diesel versus British Bulldog enough for me to be excited.
Amazing. Yeah, it's true. An amazing segment happened next. So Ahmed Johnson did a vignette about what honor means to him. Ahmed is famously bad on the mic. I always thought he was pretty cool as a kid because he just had this great look and was just such a monster, and like I love the Pearl River Plunge as a finishing move and everything, and like I just thought like, yeah, he's legit. Like he's not a dude you'd want to mess with. I really believe in him. But as an adult, like seeing him talk and seeing him work, I'm like, yeah, Ahmed probably wasn't really the business. But anyway, so he's doing this vignette. And he talks about his mother making minimum wage. He's like, your mom works minimum wage, but you know she's not a minimum wage woman. She somehow finds the $5 or $8 it takes for you to go to a WWF event. So you do the best you can for her and yourself at school the next day, and that's what honor means to him. McMahon says that Ahmed Johnson is a man who had his values all together before there was even a Million Man March. I thought that the whole thing kind of was a little tone deaf. Tex, what do you think of all of this, the Ahmed Johnson stuff and this particular promo?
I mean, if they're trying to get him over as a babyface, like, okay, he can come out and give like the PSA, because ultimately he's saying, do well in school for your mother because she works hard for you. I mean, that's a universal thing that people can get behind. I just, it's a little cringy. I'm not going to lie, but I see what they were trying to do.
We also get some footage of Dean Douglas attacking Shawn Michaels on last week's Raw. Jerry the King Lawler says that Dean Douglas doesn't mind the $7,500 fine because he'll just raise tuition. We get a Dean Douglas and Joe Dorgan jobber match, basically just a squash. But Tex, what were you able to find about Joe Dorgan for Jobber Watch this week?
So Joe Dorgan, his uncle worked for Vince Sr. in the WWF. His name was Tony Parisi. So Dorgan would job a little bit in the WWF eventually would head to WCW, and he was one of those guys that would be on WCW Saturday Night. If you ever watched that growing up, you see a lot of the mid-card guys, the underneath guys, and his name was Johnny Swinger over there. He would head to ECW in 2000, form a tag team with Simon Diamond, and then he would head back to WCW for a cruiserweight tag tournament where he and partner Jason Lee would lose to Kidman and Rey Mysterio Jr. in the first round. He would head to TNA with Simon Diamond as a tag team. They would eventually win the TNA titles. He turns on his partner, aligns with Jeff Jarrett, and feuds with Simon Diamond. Comes to WWE as Johnny Parisi, wins his debut on Sunday Night Heat, but would never win another match. He'd hold the distinction as one of the only WWE wrestlers to never appear on camera on Raw. So it's their flagship show, and he would never actually appear on camera. And then he would head to the Indies, and he'd be involved with angles. He would be involved in angles with such names as Bull Buchanan, Raven, and Jim Cornette. So, this guy looks like he's like a no-name guy, but a lot of these jobbers will, eventually stick around, and you'll kind of notice them later on. Like if you see the Hardys back in this day, you wouldn't recognize them, but they would turn into the Hardy Boys eventually and be tag team champions.
Well, damn, man, like that's way more than I expected. So that's actually really interesting, and good for him that he was TNA tag champs and kind of had more of a career than we probably would have ever guessed by his name, Joe Dorgan. When I saw Joe Dorgan as a name, I was like, that is just a quintessential jobber name. So throughout this match, the main storyline on commentary is actually about the Shawn Michaels incident. So McMahon tells the audience that Shawn Michaels had gotten attacked in Syracuse over the weekend, and apparently the attack was unprovoked, and that Shawn Michaels was beaten up by, quote, 10 thugs. Shawn Michaels calls into the show, and he says a lot of different things about how he doesn't look good or feel good, but he's going to be back and he will fight In Your House. Business, what did you think of this whole Shawn Michaels call-in over the phone and the whole injury incident and everything?
Yeah, what's the actual story here? Because I mean, was it really that simple that Shawn Michaels was in Syracuse and somehow got beat up by a bunch of other people?
There's so many different ways that this story's been told, depending on who you ask. One version is that Shawn Michaels was mouthing off in a nightclub to some Marine, and it was one guy that beat the crap out of him. And then, if you ask Shawn Michaels, it was 10 guys. So it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, people will talk about it on shoot interviews and stuff on YouTube. I can't recall what the actual factual story was, though.
Really got some kind of injury from this. That's oof.
Yeah, I mean, who really knows? Because I'm pretty sure that he actually does show up at In Your House, but I think he just hands over the belt to Douglas and doesn't wrestle.
I think you're right. Yeah,
I
think it's like a forfeit or something.
And I don't remember him looking all that beat up, but this might have been the beginning of the era where Shawn Michaels was kind of going through his demons, and he definitely had drug issues where he was always on painkillers or always hungover. My take on it is that Shawn Michaels was probably drunk at a bar talking shit to someone that he didn't think would do anything to him, and then the guy actually did something to him, And yep. I think that's probably what happened. But Michael says he doesn't look good or feel good. He says he won't be able to put on as good of a show as normal. He also says, I'm not safe anywhere. Everyone is after me.
Oh my God.
He says, I'm not going to curl up and quit. That seems to be what everyone else is doing nowadays. Call me stubborn, but I gotta be there. I was like, oh God, I can't listen to this shit. I love his work, and he's one of the greatest of all time, but God, he pisses me off sometimes. At this point, they're presenting it as if Michaels is going to show up and wrestle Douglas at In Your House, but we will have to see what exactly transpires at the pay-per-view. And funnily enough, Nitro is also going to bring up Shawn Michaels later, so that will be interesting. In this actual match between Dean Douglas and Joe Dorgan, there's not a whole lot to say. Douglas just kind of beats him up for a while and then beats him with his final exam finisher, which is just a fisherman's suplex. Yeah, it's basically a perfect plex, you know. And really, Dean Douglas is kind of a Mr. Perfect ripoff, in a way. Like, you know, everything I say is perfect and articulate, and I am the quintessential champion, and like he's, you know, I'm impeccable, and everyone else is flawed and weak, and like so it's kind of similar. After that, Doc Hendricks urges the fans to buy a Two Dudes with Attitudes T-shirt. For $20 plus $4 shipping and handling. Doc says that he didn't get a passing grade on his SAT. I think this is in reference to Dean Douglas. He didn't get a passing grade on his SAT, but you can get a passing grade in being cool by buying this t-shirt. And I was like, oh, God. I also like the phrase, one size fits most anybody. And I was like, okay. Like,
yeah, what was that?
If you are super obese, our t-shirt will not fit you. That is basically what they're saying. We get a clip of the ring crew assembling the big blue steel cage, while McMahon and Lawler kill some time talking about In Your House 4. Lawler tells McMahon that he better not get raised in that separate cage because he has a huge fear of heights, and that he's been that way ever since he was a little prince. We get a little Goldust promo.
Yes. Yeah,
Goldust's awesome, man. He says he's going to give Marty Jannetty a makeover at In Your House 4. He uses the "frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn" line, and he calls Marty Jannetty a teen idol, which I thought was funny too. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you, business. That I'm sort of looking forward to Goldust's debut. I bet he'll beat Jannetty. I bet he'll just beat the crap out of Jannetty in like 3 minutes or something. Like
that's the hope. I will say I hated Goldust when I was a kid, and I have such an appreciation for the hate that he was able to inspire in me as a kid. So
same here, dude. I was just about to say I couldn't stand him as a kid, and like when you look back on this stuff, it ages really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, it was like perfect for the time too, because it was like a little edgy and like kind of pushing some buttons, but not going like too far, you know, where it's like he is sort of androgynous, maybe a little homoerotic, you know, and like, but it's not getting to like lewd levels. It's just it's perfect. Like it's not. It's such a good heat magnet for this time period and everything. They replay some footage of Mabel and Yokozuna beating up the Undertaker. We get this cool little promo of Paul Bearer screaming about the Undertaker's face being crushed, but he vows that the Undertaker will return to claim both Mabel and Yokozuna's souls. And I thought it was just a nice, eerie Paul Bearer promo. Then we get the steel cage match as the main event between Bret Hart and Isaac Yankem. Jerry the King Lawler does his adventures with dentures line. He says that Yankem is going to knock Bret's teeth out so that he'll need dentures like his parents Stu and Helen Hart.
That's awesome.
I also noticed something interesting where Jerry the King Lawler uses the phrase "stomp a mud hole in him and walk it dry." And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Like, I thought that was something that Jim Ross came up with for Stone Cold Steve Austin. But it seems like it must have been a phrase that somebody was using before then. Maybe a more Southern phrase that, you know, that Lawler and Jim Ross would be aware of or something. But a special bulletin scrolls on the bottom of the screen during this bout, which encourages fans to call the Superstar line so they can hear more about Shawn Michaels' condition. Bret seems to have the match won after a few minutes, but referee Tim White can't get the padlock off the door because Jerry the King Lawler has an actual key hidden underneath his crown at the announce table. So when Lawler said that he had the victory on lock and key, he was foreshadowing his nefarious plot to foil Bret Hart. Bret appears to be victorious a second time after he does a sharpshooter, but Lawler blocks him on the top of the cage, which prompts the WWE officials to run out and toss Lawler into the individual cage per the stipulation orders of Gorilla Monsoon. What do you guys think about this whole cage match and the Jerry Lawler stipulation and how things play out?
My thought on this was, I wish they had just somehow gotten Lawler in the cage from the start, because I feel like the match went on too long otherwise. I started to lose interest pretty quickly because there are a couple instances where either Yankem or Hart, like, basically any normal person could have gotten out of that cage, and it's like, you know, they're crawling up and they're doing everything they can to sell that they can't get out of the cage, and it's just like, Christ, just end this match at some point. It went on too long for my liking.
Yeah, it seemed like, I mean, if you've seen a Bret Hart cage match, he got like a lot of his typical stuff in there. I mean, it wasn't as memorable as like a Bret versus Owen cage match. Obviously, he's working with Isaac Yankem, you know, and he's pretty much Kane, but a lot more green at this point. So yeah, I agree. It was pretty forgettable and a little bit disappointing actually. Before the King was actually put inside the cage, and that added a little bit to it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Jerry Lawler in the small kind of shark cage that's suspended above the ring, that's like the best part. And so I agree that like they should have gotten him up there a lot earlier and moved the match way quicker. Lawler gets a nosebleed while he's up in the cage, which I thought was really funny. Yeah, Lawler was killing it. Like, he was, like, easily the best part about the whole thing. Lawler apparently said in a WWE.com interview that he had picked a scab in his nose to cause the bleeding. And I still find that kind of hard to believe. Apparently, he didn't discuss it with McMahon ahead of time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I just thought it looked fake. And so I guess I believe Jerry Lawler. You know, he's the guy who did it. Either way, it was funny. I loved him getting the nosebleed, and I loved him yelling to McMahon and all this stuff. At one point, Lawler tosses a key down into the ring to Yankem, but Bret cuts that off, and he, you know, I guess he uses a low blow, and then he does Bret's 5 moves of doom. You know, he does the Russian leg sweep and the backbreaker and the elbow and his whole like routine and everything, and then Bret wins the match. After we come back from commercial, Lawler is still trapped in the cage, and McMahon is telling him that there's technical difficulties, so they might have to keep him up there for a while, which I thought was pretty good. McMahon tells us to tune in next week to see Bertha Faye versus Alundra Blaze. There's also going to be a 20-man battle royal who will determine who gets to face the Intercontinental Champion on the following week's Raw.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of interesting, where it's like we're apparently going to get Dean Douglas and Shawn Michaels, and then we're going to have this like 20-man battle royal to see who will be the number 1 contender. I was going to ask you guys if you had predictions on who's going to win that 20-man battle royal.
Savio Vega.
Savio Vega, nice.
I really don't know. Is Goldust in it? I would kind of guess Goldust if he was in it.
I'm pretty sure Razor Ramon is the guy who beats Dean Douglas for the Intercontinental title. And so I think like Shawn's gonna give the belt to Dean Douglas, and then I think Razor's gonna win the Battle Royal, and then I think Razor's gonna beat Dean Douglas pretty shortly after that. I think that probably is what's gonna happen, but I kind of hope I'm wrong because I would like to be surprised. Okay, so yeah, this is the go home show before In Your House 4 in Winnipeg. You know, we're going to get Fatu versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. We're going to get the Guns versus Ramon and the Kid. We're going to get Goldust versus Marty Jannetty. We're going to get Yokozuna versus Mabel. And we're going to get Diesel versus the British Bulldog. And Dean Douglas versus Shawn Michaels. I thought it was kind of a weak go-home effort because there wasn't really like that many things that would make you want to watch it. I mean, we did get the Bulldog promo on Diesel. We got the Goldust promo on Jannetty. But, like, you know, Bret Hart's not even going to be involved. So it's like to have him in, like, the main event. And I don't know. It just didn't really feel like it was leading into a pay-per-view, probably because it was a taped show. We are going to watch In Your House, and we're going to review it. And my impressions are that it's going to be awesomely bad. We'll see. You know, it'll be our first pay-per-view review that we do. Yeah, so that's Raw. Let's move right into Nitro. This is the 7th episode that they've done. It was a live show in the Albany Civic Center in Albany, Georgia. But they, unlike other episodes of Nitro, they don't really point out where it is. They just they make sure you know it's live, But a lot of times in the past, they've been like, oh, live from Denver or live from the Mall of America or like whatever it is. And this time, maybe it's just that they were in this small part of Georgia. They didn't think it was a good look. It gets a 2.2 in the TV ratings, so it loses to Raw this week. Kind of surprising to me. I think there was a period where Nitro had to kind of catch up to Raw and kind of get traction and get, fans to watch and everything. I feel like it's only a matter of time until Nitro sort of overtakes them, because I have to say, I feel like Nitro's product has kind of consistently been better. But anyway, they lose to Raw in the ratings this week by a 0.4 margin. We have Bischoff, Mongo, and Heenan on commentary. Pepe the Chihuahua is dressed like an alien, and Mongo tells us that Pepe is Captain Love Dog, who has flown in from Dogtron, and he wants to see some out-of-this-world action.
All right.
Yeah. We get a recap of WCW Pro where Sting has agreed to be Ric Flair's partner for tonight's main event tag match. But he says that if Flair swerves him, he's going to kill Flair and leave him for dead. He literally says, I will leave you for dead, 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 dead. And I just thought it was so funny.
I love Sting. But wait, what was WCW Pro?
Exactly. I had never heard.
No clue.
I knew about Saturday Night, and I knew about Main Event, which are like two shows that they have. But I don't know what the hell WCW Pro is. So we got a promo from WWF Tour de Force earlier, and now we got something from WCW Pro. Anyway, it does appear that Sting has agreed to be Flair's partner for the tag match and everything. The first actual match is Diamond Dallas Page and Johnny B. Bad for the TV title. The backstory to this was really funny because before the match, they showed this clip where Johnny B. Bad punches DDP in the face. And all you really hear in the clip is Johnny B. Bad saying, how did you know it was 4 flat tires? I said, a flat tire. And then he punches DDP in the face. So I'm guessing that DDP gave Johnny B. Bad 4 flat tires, which caused him to not be able to get to a match with Sting for the TV title. And then somehow DDP revealed that he was the one who did it. And then Johnny B. Bad socked him in the face. DDP comes out to the ring, and there was some mascot there, and I kind of recognized the mascot, but I couldn't really pin down exactly what mascot it was. Kind of looked like some sort of cat or something. But DDP just smacks the mascot in the face, which I thought was awesome. So yeah, DDP beats up this mascot. He's got this cigar or blunt in his mouth. DDP is, I guess, just supposed to be kind of trailer trash. I don't know exactly what his.
I think so.
Yeah, I think he's almost supposed to be a wife abuser or something too, because he treats Kimberly so terribly. And obviously she is one of the sexiest women that have ever been in wrestling. She is so hot. So Kimberly comes down looking great. They call her the Diamond Doll. And DDP makes her open the ropes for her, and he kind of bosses her around. It kind of has a little bit of a Macho Man Elizabeth vibe going on, where where you're kind of almost supposed to hate DDP as a heel because of the way he treats Kimberly, kind of like how Macho did with Elizabeth when he was a heel. I liked everything.
I'd love WWE to try this angle nowadays. See how it would go over.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. No, yeah, man, we could talk about the modern product for a long time and all the problems with it, but no, we're in the PG era right now, so yeah, they don't do things like this, even though I think they should. You have to be controversial to make people care sometimes.
Yep.
I just feel like wrestling needs its edge, and it's doesn't have it quite as much, maybe at all. But anyway, I thought everything about Kimberly was great. She maybe oversold things at the end when DDP was kind of giving his beat down on Bad, but other than that, she was a really good addition. Johnny B. Bad actually gets a pretty big ovation, and he's dancing around the ring. He's got his confetti cannon, which is a funny thing. That was such a more of a cool thing back in like 1995 than it would be now. Like I think if somebody came out with that now in wrestling, everyone would be like, "Who is this twat with his confetti, his like confetti cannon?" But back in the day, everyone was like, "Oh, that's so sick!" Like, and so he's dancing around, and then DDP just sucker punches him in the back with the championship belt and just levels him with the TV title in the back of the head. And
awesome.
Johnny B. Bad does a great job selling it. Like, he's literally on the ground just like dead weight, and DDP's trying to like roll him over, and he's just lying there. Like, so he did like a great sell job of being like knocked unconscious. DDP wants the ref to count. He's like he's trying to pin Johnny B. Bad afterwards, and so eventually DDP just does his own 3 count. But obviously he's disqualified. And I think this was this was sort of a smart thing to do, because they're going to do this match at Halloween Havoc in 2 weeks. And so I think it was smart not to like give it away and be like, we're just going to build the heat for this match instead of giving you a decision. Because if they had a clean finish in this match, like, what would be the point of the match at Halloween Havoc? So thought it was pretty cool. I loved how Bischoff was calling DDP human trash. This man is trash. Human trash. I just thought the way he was saying it was so good. But I've been going on about this. I mean, what did you guys think of Diamond Dallas Page and Johnny B. Bad?
Same as what you said. I thought it was the best use of those 2 guys for this kind of situation. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, the whole DDP sucker punching him and then just kind of like shooting off the confetti cannon on his own and messing with Johnny B. Bad.
I thought it was awesome because I had never really seen, or I don't really remember, DDP just acting like a complete and total heel. And he had the look of a complete heel. He had the mannerisms of a heel, and he played it off really well. I thought it was hilarious when he just took the belt and just bashed Johnny B. Bad with it. And when Bischoff was calling him human trash, it just made me remember how in the future we're going to get some vicious Scott Steiner promos against DDP calling him Diamond Dallas white trash. So I just thought that was hilarious.
Awesome. I did like when he fired the confetti cannon off, and Nick Patrick, the referee, gave this like surprised expression. I thought that was funny too. Kind of going from a no match to an amazing match.
Oh,
so we got Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. So much good stuff here, but I mean, what did you guys think of this match?
I know they mentioned the cruiserweight division at the end of this. So technically there was no cruiserweight title at this point for WCW?
No. Like, after the match, they start hyping the new cruiserweight division they're going to have, which was cool. But yeah, as of now, it was almost just like it was like fledgling. It was like a brainchild, kind of. Yeah.
Which is kind of what's funny about it, because I feel like we're either going to get Benoit versus Guerrero, or Benoit versus Malenko, or Guerrero versus Malenko for a while before I imagine they like up the number of guys in this division.
Oh yeah, we'll get Psychosis and Juventud and Ray.
Ray missed. Yep.
Yeah, dude, we're gonna get some good stuff.
It was a great match. I just feel like we're getting a lot of these 3 guys going up against each other. Like, the only other one who might be in there at this time is like Mr. JL
and Sabu. Yeah.
Oh, and Sabu. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. Tex, what did you think of the in-ring work here?
Oh, dude, I was losing my mind in this match. It was excellent. It was so good. I mean, you had the psychology of it. I mean, of course, it was going to start off being very technical, but then once Eddie injured his arm on that ring post, and then just the way Benoit was just going after that arm for the next several minutes. I mean, when he had his arm chicken winged and he did that Northern Lights suplex, I was like, dude, this is a great match. And this is exactly what we were expecting when we saw Benoit get out of that car on that episode of Nitro before. But we had some really good vintage stuff from both Benoit and Eddie. I mean, you had Eddie's vintage brainbuster. Great move. I mean, you had Benoit with stiff-looking power bombs. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this match.
Yeah, man. One of the craziest spots was Benoit Benoit was going to kind of do like a back suplex to Guerrero, like out of the ring, and then they both just fell out of the ring. And that was like it looked so dangerous, but then when I watched it, I was like, they did that so safely. Like it was it's such a dangerous spot to do something like that where you both go backwards over the top rope. But they did it safely. You know, there was this one Benoit chop that was so loud it like echoed throughout like the whole arena. I was like, Jesus. And then the Benoit power bomb looked like he just killed Eddie. Like Eddie just like slammed his head on the mat. And like it looked so vicious. But yeah, the hammerlock, Northern Lights suplex, all kinds of crazy good stuff. You know, Eddie had this like tornado DDT off the second rope where he like springboarded and turned, and it was just unbelievable. They didn't botch anything.
The full Nelson German suplex with the bridge.
Yeah, I guess you'd even call that a dragon suplex or something.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like they were doing things that the announcers didn't even know how to call. Like that was like that. I just thought it was amazing. Benoit eventually wins with a dragon suplex, but they just do so much stuff. You know, Guerrero tries to hit his frog splash, that gets reversed. The only thing we really don't get is a Benoit flying headbutt, but like other than that, we get like everything here. At one point, Mongo says something about how like if you don't think Hogan is going to come for the Giant, you got more rocks in your head than a face on Mount Rushmore, which I thought was a great Mongo line. One awful piece of commentary was Bischoff saying that the C in WCW stands for commitment. Commitment to bring you the biggest names in the industry, the most exciting stars in the industry, and the best wrestling live each week. I was like, all right. And Heenan kind of saved it to say that it actually stands for crippled, which I thought was good. Heenan basically says that Benoit will be holding gold soon and that it's only a matter of time. Bischoff mentions the cruiserweight division and they kind of talk about how great that'll be. And we get Mike Tenay's name mentioned. You know, Mike Tenay is on the WCW hotline. And Mike Tenay will actually play a big role in the cruiserweight division stuff. Like, there's gonna be a period of time where Mike Tenay is gonna do all these little like documentary reports about like lucha libre and like the history of it and the masks and the tradition. And so Mike Tenay is like this big wrestling geek, but I just love him. He's awesome. So I'm looking forward to Mike Tenay. Mean Gene is in the ring. And he's going to be interviewing the Taskmaster and the Giant. But first, Mean Gene is hyping up the WCW hotline, and he's teasing little snippets of gossip about the WWF. He even says WWF, but it was bleeped out on the network, which I thought was funny. And he says that some person got canned in the front office. I didn't know what that was referring to. And then he also said that a wrestler got in a fight with a fan and came out on the short end of the stick, which was obviously referring to Shawn Michaels. You know, it's just funny to see the difference in presentation about the Shawn Michaels injury over the two shows. Like, you know, on Raw, it's like Michaels is calling in as like the sympathetic guy who's been attacked, and then on WCW, it's just like, oh yeah, this wrestler picked a fight with a fan in a parking lot and got beaten up, you know?
And that's real old school wrestling, if I can jump in real quick. I mean, because it goes back to the territory days. Like, it was a rule. If you got in a fight with a fan and you lost, like, you pretty much lost your job back in those days. And I know WCW is the more southern promotion, so maybe that has something to do with the way they presented that.
Is that true? Like, oh, that's awesome.
Like, when fans used to rush into the ring back in those days, it was like a rule. Both wrestlers were supposed to like beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, you had to protect the business. There was even this thing where they did like you'd have a wrestler who was called the policeman, basically. And so if you had a top guy who couldn't actually fight and wrestle well, what would happen is he would beat someone who could actually wrestle for real. And so that way, at like a carny kind of show, if some fan wanted to challenge the champion could be like, oh no, you got to beat this guy. I already beat him. So like, what makes you think you can beat me if you can't beat him? And so then the legitimate shooter, the legitimate fighter would beat up the guy so that the champion wouldn't have to be embarrassed. And I thought that whole like policeman role, I thought that was really interesting because it really does have its roots in like the carnival kind of thing. Then the Giant and the Taskmaster come out. Kevin Sullivan is dressed in Hogan's red and yellow robe. He talks in his creepy voice about how evil he is. He says there was a man dressed in black who told him that he was evil, but that Hogan was evil too. He says after Halloween Havoc, all the Hulkamaniacs will become children of the Dungeon of Doom. Then the Giant has his turn to talk. He basically says that he's going to destroy the Hogan monster truck and that they will need the jaws of life to get Hogan out. He also palms Mean Gene's entire face with his hand, which I thought was funny. The fans chant for Hogan, but he does not show. Any thoughts on the Taskmaster Giant promo?
You can see them moving more and more towards Hogan, kind of embracing his dark side, and they're really trying to pull that out, and they're making that more and more of an actual story now. And so we're seeing Hogan in the black and everything, and it just seems like we're building towards what we all know is eventually coming.
Yeah, so we get a match between Ming and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. The only things that were really of note here are Disco Inferno coming out in the beginning to dance and interrupt things. Bischoff said this thing about Disco where he says, "This guy is making me cough up my toenails." And I was like, what?
Yeah, what was that about?
I was like, what? Like, are you admitting to either biting your own toenails or at least having toenails in your mouth? Like, that was weird. So Disco comes out, but other than Disco coming out, the only thing that I think is really noteworthy is that Ming wins with the Tongan Death Grip, which is an awesome finishing move. Did you guys have any notes about this? I appreciated that Ming went over, I guess.
No, not much. I mean, I thought that spike or the Tongan Death Grip was kind of cool, and it was funny how Disco Inferno was really, like, he was dancing, but he was, like, way off beat. I thought that was noticeable. That jumped off the screen at me.
What about you, Business? Anything on this match?
Literally just Disco. Always enjoy seeing him. Otherwise, yeah, I can't say there was much for me going here.
Yeah, I mean, at least, like, they usually make the Dungeon of Doom guys look bad, but Ming has won both his matches that we've seen, so good for Ming, and I kind of am a fan of Ming overall. So after Ming beats Duggan, we get a Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart promo. They're kind of just in front of like a green screen. They kind of just have this like cheesy backdrop that has like Hulk Hogan's name spray painted in black spray paint, and Hogan is dressed in all black. He's wearing his black neck brace. And I noticed that he calls the fans Hulkamanioids, which I thought was kind of weird. Seems like a lot more insulting than Hulkamaniacs. Business, did you like this dark side of Hulk Hogan promo?
I love the dark Hogan. He's kind of like obnoxious. I'm enjoying where it's going. I think it's going to make Halloween Havoc a lot more fun than if this were just the traditional like red and yellow superhero Hogan, like coming to save the day.
I thought it was cool how he called himself Don Corleone, Hulk Hogan, and he was trying to protect the prayers, the training, and the vitamins.
Dude, hell yeah. I wrote down the Don Corleone thing too. And he also said, I had to write some of this stuff down. He also said that he can stop elephants in their tracks. He also mentioned that he makes promoters fall to their knees and cry because Hulkamania is more powerful than their whole stinking promotion, which was, damn, what a sucker punch to Vince McMahon. Like, yeah, that was crazy. I also loved how Hogan threatened the pit crew of the Bigfoot monster truck if they didn't do their job correctly or quick enough. I was like, man, like, you're picking on the pit crew of your monster truck. Like, you really are kind of a heel at this point. He tells Jimmy Hart to stay out of it because Hart's all worried and whining about the dungeon. He even ends it all with saying Hulkamania. He doesn't do his whole Hulkamania is going to run wild on you. He says it's going to gouge you. Like, what you going to do when Hulkamania gouges you? And I was like, damn, this guy is... It's the dark side of Hogan here. I agree, Business. I think it's going to make things a lot more enjoyable. I mean, how can it not be enjoyable? We're going to get them in monster trucks on the top of a building, and then we're going to get them in the ring as well. So that's just going to be wrestling spectacle. We get to our main event, which is Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman versus Ric Flair and Sting. But in the beginning, Sting is a no-show early on, and so Flair is kind of flying solo. And Ric Flair was awesome in this match.
Yes.
He was going off. Like, he had so much energy. He was like kicking the crap out of both of them, you know, chopping them all over the place. There was one chop that he did, I think it was on Arn Anderson. and he chopped him, and it actually caused the referee to fall over. Like, I love like the chop was so intense that the referee got caught in like the backswing of it or something, and like the referee got knocked down. Yeah, but Flair's going crazy. He like drops Pillman on the guardrail. At one point, Flair did a double axe handle from the top rope. Like, it was just awesome Flair stuff. And then, even though Flair doesn't really seem to need that much help, there is a point where Anderson and Pillman kind of get the heat on him, and they're beating him up, and they're double teaming him. God, it's crazy. Like, Ric Flair put them both in the figure four. At one point, at one point, he had Anderson in the figure four, and he still managed to avoid Pillman's like splash off the top rope.
Yeah.
Like,
that was awesome.
The whole thing was just amazing, and so eventually, the 2-1 odds just get the best of Flair, I guess. Even though he seemed to be winning anyway. So then Sting finally comes out, and Sting gets a hot tag, and then Sting just beats the crap out of both of them. You know, he's clotheslining both of them, he's giving stinger splashes in both corners, and then eventually, like, Anderson and Pillman both get knocked out of the ring, and they get counted out. And this is another match that we're also gonna get at Halloween Havoc. And so I guess they were doing the count out so that they could, you know, have something still kind of unresolved that they could pick up with at Halloween Havoc and not just give us kind of the same thing. Yeah, both Sting and Flair were just amazing in this match, especially Flair. To me, this is like one of the best Flair performances that I've seen, certainly on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But just like overall. Then there's a little segment in the ring with Mean Gene and Flair and Sting at the end, but I wanna hear your guys' thoughts about the tag match. I know I went through a lot of it, but I mean, what did you guys think of this main event for Nitro?
Compared to the cage match, I enjoyed Ric Flair, like the 1-on-2, much more than like Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem. And it's like you said, like Flair was full of energy. It was pretty enthralling. Really enjoyed it. Definitely put Nitro over the top for this week. Although, you know, given the product with Raw, wasn't that difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not going to hear anything different from me on this match. I thought it was great. Flair he brought everything at the beginning, and he was all over the place. Knife edge chops for everyone. And then when Sting came in, you had the crowd really popping. I mean, loud pop for Sting, and then a loud pop for that hot tag, and then Stinger splashes for everyone. It was just nonstop energy throughout the match, and I thought it was excellent.
I agree that I think Raw to me seems like it's like, hey, we taped all this stuff, now let's cobble it together and try to have it make sense and like build some storylines. But I think the whole fact that they've had to tape all these shows in advance is just really kind of throwing off the continuity of their stories, and like it just, yeah, like I just felt like it'd be really hard to like feel that excited about In Your House based on Raw. And I mean, that's the number one priority if it's the go home show before a pay-per-view, is to make people really want to watch the pay-per-view. And I kind of felt like, like it's like, oh, Shawn Michaels might not even be there, and you're not getting Undertaker anymore, and like, but look forward to Fatu and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. It's like, goddamn, man. Sure. So anyway, at the end of the tag match, we get this little conversation between Sting and Flair that's conducted by Mean Gene, and basically the two of them are going to take on Double A and Pillman at Halloween Havoc. Sting said he was unsure if he could trust Flair, but now he's realized he can. He thinks Flair has guts, and he loved the way that he was beating the crap out of the other wrestlers. He gives Flair a high five. He says that Flair didn't really need the help, but the point was that he needed to see if Flair had heart and if Flair was able to hold his own. It kind of seems like we're going to get a betrayal from Ric Flair. That's my, like, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that this is all going to be like a swerve, and Flair's going to actually turn his back on Sting. And I think it's going to be like Flair, Pillman, and Anderson are back to being like the Horsemen or whatever. That's my guess, but we'll have to see. So we're 2 weeks out from Halloween Havoc, so we'll have one more Nitro to do before then. But we are going to have In Your House coming up on the 22nd, and we're going to be reviewing that pay-per-view together, so that'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, I guess overall, I mean, as usual, I would say that I feel like Nitro won. I'm excited to do a pay-per-view review with you guys. I think that's going to be really fun, but I kind of wish that it was going to be like Survivor Series instead of In Your House 4.
Yeah.
But you know, I think the kind of awesomely bad aspect of In Your House 4 is going to probably make it pretty fun to review at the same time. And you know, it'll only be like an hour and a half probably too, which, you know, it won't, you know, it's not like we'll have to watch some 4-hour show like they put on these days. Yeah, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on the October 16th episodes, and who do you think won for the week? It sounds like Nitro is the consensus. What are you looking forward to most at In Your House 4?
Gold Dust. That's about it. Like, I can't really tell you I'm psyched for much else.
Looking forward to him going.
Exactly. Like, I'm waiting for him to do like the weird thing where he, like Jannetty's gonna be standing there and he walks up behind him and like rubs his hand up his chest. And Jannetty's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you know, he'll do the whole drop to his knees and uppercut you spot. You know, and we'll probably get a curtain call. Probably not the Shattered Dreams yet. Yeah, man, Gold Dust is good stuff, and I mean, I'm kind of intrigued for Yoko and Mabel, but just on that kind of like, what is going to happen sort of level. Not that I actually think it's going to be that great, but I'm interested to see the whole Shawn Michaels stuff too, just from like an adult perspective, because like as a kid, you know, you probably were like, oh man, you know, Shawn Michaels is injured and he's, you know, oh, he's up against all these odds, but you know, it'll be interesting to see how they like play that out at the actual pay-per-view. Stay tuned for the In Your House 4 and the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view reviews we're going to do. We'll also be back after that to do the October 23rd episodes of the two shows. Yeah, Tex, any final thoughts for us about things?
Not much other than what we've already said. Nitro clearly wins based on, you know, the quality of the show and everything, even though Raw won in the ratings. I mean, I'm excited for the unintentional comedy of what we're going to see with In Your House, with some of the matches that they've already announced on the card. So looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for listening. For Big Tex and Big Business, I'm Frank Incensed, and we will see you next time for In Your House 4 in Winnipeg.